I've had about enough pushing and pulling and dragging that Buick around with the chain. Whoops, wrong car. She made it through the winter and she's still looking clean and mean. It's time to make her finally run, I think. So I made the executive decision to take a little me time and do just that. For my faithful subscribers that have been waiting 7 months for an update on this project, I apologize. The last time you saw this car was at my customer appreciation event last year, and I'd mentioned that my buddy Joe Gomez at Pine Valley Auto color matched these tins I built to the exterior color of the car. And what I was kind of hinting towards there is he's been selected by Matrix Automotive Finishes as a 2022 Matrix Maverick of Color. They pick 3 people every year to showcase the talents of these guys that are using their products. And most of these guys have been on all the big TV shows that you see on the Discovery Channel. So huge congratulations to you, Joe. You definitely earned it. It's really awesome to have somebody with your kind of talent right here local at my disposal. And congrats to Jeff Myers for guessing what I made this intake cover out of. He won himself a free t-shirt. That is a 1967 Chevelle SS hood, the 2 bulges in the hood that I had cut out and sectioned together. And of course, what you've seen from the previous video, the sides are door skin panels from a 60 to 66 Chevy pickup. So what's left to do on this car? Well, quite a lot. Got the entire brake system to take care of. There's no drive shaft on it. There's no wiring, plumbing, no fuel system. Yeah, there's a lot to do. One other thing we still need to do is tin in the front of the core support here. I'm going to tin this in solid. In order to do that, I had to take the hood bracket off, and I'm going to have to cut these tabs off of here to come in flat, and we'll just use our new piece to mount the grill so we don't have to worry about losing them. I never did show on the previous videos the air cleaner here. So everything's walled off tight to the front of the radiator, and the air filter's inside here. It's actually right here. But check that out. It's right above the coolers. Every ounce of air that comes in the front of the car is going to get either jammed through the radiator or right into the intake. Show you real quick how this radiator is mounted. I made these little bungs here on the lathe and TIG welded them to the bottom of the tank, and I'm using these 99-06 Chevy pickup radiator mount isolators. Those radiators have a little peg made right onto the bottom of them, just like this. So these slide on there, and these little buggers here, I knocked a hole in the bottom of the core support, and those sit in there just like that. So it's not rigid mounted, and stuff can move around and not break my radiator. Pretty clean, eh, Mike?
So clean, pinky ring.
Oye, ¿sabes qué le noté a mi carro?
Pinche carapila.
Thanks to Japan's Customs at the Make It Custom channel for showing us how to make that sweet little tool. It's for a number 10 machine screw. It worked out pretty good, I like it. Well, I think that's finally the end of all the sheet metal work on this thing. Let's get her up in the air and make her go. Well, we're kind of one step forward and two steps back here. I was trying to plug my harness in, and you can see I had to notch this frame here for the trans plug. You can see how tight that tranny's in there. I got about an 1/8 inch per side. But my notch is too far back, so I need to drop the tranny back out, notch this up ahead further, and plate it back in. And being that that tranny is so tight back there, these engine mounts are set up to pivot 90 degrees from what a normal engine mount does, and that's to tip the tranny down to get it out. And to do that, I had to pull my false firewall out to allow the motor to tip back far enough here. I had to pull the headers off, obviously. So yeah, all kinds of fun stuff going on here. Before I do that, I'm going to measure for this drive shaft. I'm about 6 inches longer with this ADE than the original drivetrain. The drive shaft slides right in there just fine, and this is a 2-piece shaft, so the carrier bearing bolts right in there. The carrier bearing is actually back, well, you can see it through that hole right there. Well, we got the old drive shaft jam back in there, and I've got the coil packs relocated up front here. Obviously, they're not going on the valve cover, but I used a set of 93 to 97 LT1 Camaro plug wires, and they worked out pretty slick. Also, jumping onto the bit of the wiring and stuff that needs to be done before I put that firewall back in. Went out in the backyard and grabbed up a tack module for the electronic throttle pedal. Now this is a 2001 motor, and it would originally had a cable throttle, but I wanted to easily hook up cruise control. It's just 3 or 4 wires with the electronic throttle setup. With a cable, you have to run a big ancillary box, and we're trying to do a minimalist engine bay here. I also found the wiring schematics for this car and trimmed out quite a bit of wire of this main engine harness. Pretty much got it narrowed down to key on power. It used to go to the distributor. This is the coolant temp for the dummy light in the dash, and this is the oil pressure for the other dummy light. Also got the ECM mounted here. I did originally have this trunk of the harness that's now going through the fender. It was going into the car, but there's really no good place for me to mount it in there. I just ended up with a nice little spot to stash it here in the front there after building those covers. But the ECM just slides in here. Yeah, that handy little stuff there, that's what it was either Yamaha or Arctic Cat ATV comes in when it gets shipped to the dealership in a crate before they assemble it. I wish I had some more of that stuff. I had about a 6-foot chunk of that about 10 years ago, and that's all that's left of her. Right now I'm just trying to go through and figure out what I need out of this stuff that needs to go inside the car. Obviously the OBD2 plug isn't going to reach into the car, so I need to cut that off and extend that, and I'll need to grab a couple of these wires here for cruise control and whatnot. So I'll try to get everything sorted so I can stash it behind that firewall before it goes back in. Hopefully for the last time. Well, since I got such a short attention span, squirrel, jump from thing to thing here, but working on the Trans Dipstick. This was out of a van. It's got the 2-piece tube. Normally this tube would have been probably another 3 feet longer. In fact, that piece here is what I cut out of the dipstick itself. But in order to shorten them, you have to get the length correct. That's pretty critical. But to put them back together, just drill a hole in them there, and I used a piece of a finishing nail. I just clipped it off with the side cutters and use that as a rivet. Pound around flat with the hammer and you're done. I've shortened a lot of them that way. I've got all my wiring straightened out, tidied up, squared away. The only thing I've got to terminate yet are my fan wires, which will go to this handy little bugger. This cooling fan I'm using is out of a Volvo 740. But all I got to do is take those 2 small wires and hook them to these 2. Provide a hot and ground, and that's done. Check those fans out. I like to use a OE style fan whenever possible. I usually go with the Chrysler Sebring fans, but the size of this radiator, they weren't going to work. But all my extra wiring for the OBD2 plug and the cruise control stuff and just all the extra crap that needed to go in the car, I stuck into that loom that goes up top there to the tack module. We'll focus in here, and you can see it comes out of the top of that tack module plug and goes down into the car. I pretty much got everything I need mounted to the firewall while it's still out, so all this stuff back here will be stashed. So now I'm working on getting all these coolers mounted in the fan. I just got her wedged in there with a block of wood right now. But I've just bucked off a bunch of these 3/4 inch long 1-inch slugs on the saw, and I'm going to drill and tap those on the lathe to mount my condenser to. Get them tagged down to the radiator. Got that condenser mounted. These tabs were a little short here, so I just took a piece of 18 gauge and put a nice little 90-degree bend on her, and she's solid as a rock. I had to speed that TIG welding footage way up because, well, so you didn't see how horrible I am at it. But it's welded. Hopefully it don't leak. I got a little bit more to do. I got to do the steam fitting on my coolant tube here yet to connect to there. I really don't have a good spot to go into the radiator here. That won't be in my way. But I'm trying to get this transmission cooler mounted in here. I dicked around with this for a good hour, trying to jam it in there someplace it would work. I need to get the cathedral headlight motor in here somewhere yet. I'm not using the original one. We'll disclose that when the time comes. But that trans cooler's out of like a 2006 Duramax truck. And it's got a number 10 O-ring boss fitting on it. And the only O-ring boss fitting I had in the 10 was this hydraulic fitting, which is the 10 to 1/2 inch pipe. And I need to get down to a 3/8 hard line, so I'll hack that off in the bandsaw and drilled and tapped this for a number 6 fitting, 11/16 fine thread. So we've got our fitting made for that. I'm trying to avoid using any of this AN stuff at all costs. I gotta fish through some pretty tight areas here, and I'd rather do it with a hard line. We're getting ready to build some transmission lines. Got the cooler mounted in there securely. Had to install my torque converter bolts because that hadn't been done yet, and put that cover on there. I cut this, it was almost a 1-inch lip off the bottom of that thing that went all the way across. It just looked like something I was gonna get hung up on hanging down there, so we got rid of that. And got the starter in there. And I also installed a couple of Street 45 fittings to get around my floor pan. You see, that's pretty cozy in there. Let's get some tranny lines fished through here. Special delivery from Streetcar Injection. Check them out. I sent them 5 sets of injectors and he turned them around in 4 days. They were all plugged up. And just in time because we're ready to put the intake on this thing. Coolers are all back in. Them all packed in there. Also got the fan mounted. Fans mounted in there solid. I think you could pull this car out of the ditch by it. She's in there. And I mounted the old puke tank right there. Be kind of stashed when everything's put together here. Just crawled underneath real quick to show you how I mounted the bottom of this fan. Just a tab and a pin. Kind of like a factory one would be mounted. Oh yeah, always something. I was trying to pop this brake master fitting out because it's filled with mud bees and I didn't want to push that shit down into the master cylinder. And I broke the fitting off. This is of course this is a top secret twist lock fitting that is not reproduced. So I ended up drilling that out and this piece was lost down in there. I ended up fishing that out with this was it an endo grasp? That's for endoscopic surgery. We did a little endoscopic surgery and fished that out of there. And I drilled it out and sucked all the chips and crap off with my shop vac. Taped the hose on there so I could get down in there. I got it cleaned out now and I've got a grommet that'll work in that hole. And we're gonna try and do something with some AN fittings. Something like that. That tightened down nice in there. And I red Loctited this, so that ain't going nowhere. Well, that turned out pretty good actually. I was kind of panicking about that. I took the stock plastic fitting, tapped it for 1/8-inch pipe, and that little bugger here is one of these inline check valves. I use these on the PCV system on the turbo builds I do. But I turned that end down on the lathe and ran a die on it and got that to 1/8 inch pipe. Screwed that in there. And we're looking pretty good. Time to get the fuel system put together. Popped out the sending unit. Removed this puny little 1/4 inch line. And drilled that out so I could get a 5/16 line in there. And I also had usually a metal strap here for the gauge. That was bad, so I soldered a wire on there and tested it with the meter. Got the fuel gauge working again. We're going to get our piece bent and 5/16 line soldered in there. Well, here's our fuel system. Out of that rubber hose I stuck on the tank will go into this old school carb type fuel filter. That's just keep any chunks of crap out of the pump. If you're using an old tank like I am, that thing's super clean inside, but there's a tendency to be some crap in there. I dug a little pebble out of the tank while I was dicking with that fuel sender, and that would have killed that pump. I heard something rolling around in there. But anyways, from there, we'll rubber hose to the pump. This is a Walbro 255 inline pump. It's kind of my go-to because it's enough fuel for any sort of cammed setup, kind of a full bolt-on deal. I probably wouldn't run it for a boost application, but it's probably double flow of what all your LS swap style pumps use. The number on that is GSL 392-72. From there, we'll use this poly line. I use this on all my builds. It's just super easy to work with. It's a 3/8 poly line. This fitting will push into there. And then to this fuel injection style filter. No reason I use these K&N ones other than I know they're the right size and the price is right on them. From there, we've got a return style regulator that's vacuum referenced. I'm using that because the fuel rail I'm using is the deadhead style with no return on it. And we'll run a 5/16 return line out of that. To get hooked onto that poly line, I've got some AN adapters, just some barb fittings. Those should push in there. And the ends for this poly line are just these SUR&R push to connect. These ones just shove in there with a crimp ring. For the home gamer, it's probably not worth it to buy this kit, but I use it all the time. I'll give you a look at the fuel system here. I compress the suspension with the tranny jack so I don't get myself in trouble. I got a push to connect on the return, rubber hose out of the feed to the pump. I need to add a couple P clamps up there yet to secure all that, but filter's right there. Another side here. Fuel line's tucked up in there along the frame. And up to the regulator on the toe board. And from there we're going braided line to the rail. Do a quick bench flash on the CCM. Got the lid off of her. If you know, you know. This is what happens when you over-engineer a bracket that no one will ever see. Oh boy. And that little bracket is for my Volvo fan relay. Woof. That's frickin' gross. Just pop the back seat so I can run the fuel pump wire with this
bundle of wires going for the taillights and stuff, and it goes underneath the seat here. So yeah, that's gross. Only got fuel pressure set. Had a few leaks to take care of. The fitting for the gauge here, I just got an 1/8 inch pipe plug in there that was leaking, and a couple of these injector adapters were leaking as well. All I had to do was hold this and spin the injector a little bit. The O-rings must not have been seated properly. But I think we're getting about ready to test fire this thing. I just now realized that when I bench flashed this ECM, I didn't put the proper injector data in for these 8.1 liter injectors. And I don't have the OBD2 plug wired yet, so I'll pop that computer back out again and reflash her on the bench quick. Alright, no bullshit. First fire. She didn't want to fire because there was a bunch of WD-40 and shit in the rail. Had to blow all that stuff out of there, run it through before she'd fire. Awesome! Well, I made a little mess with some tranny fluid. My union up there was a little bit loose. I got a couple more cranks out of that. And fun fact, you seen all them fireballs shooting out of the headers? Directly underneath that was the drain pan I was using to catch the gas out of the fuel pressure regulator when I was chasing that leak. So yeah, pan of gas directly underneath fireballs. Perfect. Plenty to do yet. We're going to leave her right there. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.